For thousands of years, human beings have looked up at the night sky and wondered if the stars were trying to say something. Long before modern clocks, calendars, or telescopes, the sky was humanity's great map. The rising of the sun told us when to wake. The phases of the moon guided time, tides, rituals, and harvests. The movement of planets across the heavens inspired myths, religions, symbols, and stories. And somewhere in that ancient relationship between earth and sky, astrology was born. Today, when most people hear the word astrology, they think of zodiac signs. Someone says, "I'm a Leo," "I'm a Scorpio," or "I'm such a Gemini." Others think of daily horoscopes, love compatibility, or short predictions in magazines and apps. But astrology is much larger than that. Your sun sign is only the beginning. It is the doorway, not the whole house. Astrology is made of signs, planets, elements, houses, angles, patterns, and cycles. It does not simply ask, what will happen tomorrow? It asks deeper questions. Who are you? What drives you? How do you feel? How do you love? What do you fear? What lessons do you return to again and again? At its simplest, astrology is a symbolic system for understanding the connection between the movements of the sky and the patterns of human life. Whether you see it as spiritual, psychological, symbolic, or simply fascinating, astrology has survived because people continue to find meaning in it. It gives names to parts of ourselves we sometimes struggle to explain. It gives shape to emotions, desires, habits, strengths, and contradictions. This is why two people born under the same zodiac sign can still be completely different. Astrology is not built from one sign alone. It is a layered system. And in this video, we are going to walk through that system from the beginning. We will explore the zodiac, the 12 signs, the elements, the qualities, the planets, the moon sign, the rising sign, houses, and aspects. You will know what people mean when they talk about signs, planets, elements, and birth charts. Most importantly, you will begin to see astrology not as a random collection of predictions, but as a language written in symbols, a language that begins with the zodiac. What is astrology? Astrology is often described as the study of how the movements of celestial bodies relate to life on Earth. In simple terms, astrology looks at the positions of the sun, moon, planets, and zodiac signs and interprets them symbolically. These symbols are then used to understand personality, emotions, relationships, timing, and life themes. But to understand astrology properly, we need to separate it from one of its most common misunderstandings. Astrology is not only about prediction. Yes, many people use astrology to think about future possibilities. But at its heart, astrology is also about meaning. It is about patterns. It is about cycles. It is about the idea that life moves in rhythms and that human beings are not separate from nature, time, or the cosmos. Think about the moon. Even if someone does not know much about astrology, they can see that the moon has phases. It grows from darkness into fullness, then slowly fades again. The tides respond to it. Many cultures built calendars around it. The moon became a symbol of emotion, change, rhythm, and inner life. Astrology takes this kind of symbolic thinking and expands it. The sun becomes a symbol of identity, vitality, and conscious selfhood. The moon becomes a symbol of emotion and instinct. Mercury becomes communication and thought. Venus becomes attraction and love. Mars becomes action, desire, and conflict. The zodiac signs give flavor to these planets. The houses show areas of life. The aspects show how different energies interact. At first, this can feel overwhelming. There are signs, planets, degrees, houses, symbols, and strange words like ascendant, conjunction, opposition, and retrograde. Many beginners feel like astrology is a locked room full of secret codes. But it becomes much easier when you break it down. Astrology is a system made of layers. The first layer is the zodiac. The second layer is the 12 signs. The third layer is understanding how those signs are grouped by elements and qualities. Then come the planets, which represent different forces within life and personality. After that, we learn about the moon sign, the rising sign, houses, and aspects. Each part adds something. A sign tells us a style of energy. A planet tells us what part of life is being expressed. A house tells us where that energy shows up. An aspect tells us how one energy relates to another. So before we go deeper, we need to begin with the great circle itself. The zodiac, the circle of signs. The word zodiac comes from an ancient idea, a circle of living symbols. The zodiac is made of 12 signs, beginning with Aries and ending with Pisces. These signs are linked to constellations, many of which were imagined as animals or mythic figures. Aries is the ram, Taurus is the bull, Cancer is the crab, Leo is the lion, Scorpio is the scorpion, Pisces is the fishes. This is why the zodiac is often described as a circle of animals. Imagine standing on Earth and looking up at the sky. From our point of view, the sun appears to move through the sky over the course of a year. As it does, it passes through the 12 zodiac signs. This apparent path of the sun became one of astrology's most important foundations. The zodiac divides the year into 12 parts. Aries begins around March 21st, near the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. This is a powerful symbolic beginning. Spring is the season of emergence. Life pushes forward. The days and nights are balanced, and then the light begins to grow stronger. Aries, the first sign, carries that energy of ignition, courage, and beginning. From Aries, the zodiac continues into Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and finally, Pisces. Each sign has its own season, symbolism, temperament, strengths, and challenges. But here is something important. The dates for zodiac signs are approximate. The sun does not enter each sign at exactly the same time every year. That is why people born near the edge of two signs, often called the cusp, may need an accurate birth chart to know their true sun sign. Still, for most beginners, the familiar zodiac dates provide a useful starting point. The zodiac is not just a calendar, it is a symbolic wheel. Each sign represents a different stage of experience. Aries begins, Taurus stabilizes, Gemini questions, Cancer protects, Leo expresses, Virgo refines, Libra balances, Scorpio transforms, Sagittarius explores, Capricorn builds, Aquarius reinvents, Pisces dissolves and dreams. Together, the 12 signs form a complete cycle. They describe different ways of acting, feeling, thinking, loving, creating, struggling, and growing. This is why astrology begins with the zodiac. Because before we can understand planets, moon signs, rising signs, houses, or aspects, we must first understand the 12 signs. So let's move through them one by one. The 12 zodiac signs. Each zodiac sign represents a unique style of energy. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is thinking of signs as fixed boxes. For example, Aries is angry, Taurus is stubborn, Gemini is two-faced, Cancer is emotional, Leo is dramatic, and so on. But signs are not insults or stereotypes. They are symbolic patterns. Every sign has strengths, every sign has weaknesses. Every sign can express itself in a mature or immature way. The goal is not to label people. The goal is to understand different styles of being. Let's begin with Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is associated with courage, action, directness, and beginnings. Aries energy is the spark that starts the fire. It does not want to wait too long, overthink too much, or ask for permission. It wants to move. At its best, Aries is brave, energetic, honest, and inspiring. It brings leadership, passion, and the willingness to take risks. But when unbalanced, Aries can become impatient, aggressive, impulsive, or self-centered. It may act first and think later. Aries teaches the power of beginning. It reminds us that nothing new can happen unless someone is willing to take the first step. Taurus. After the fire of Aries comes the earth of Taurus. Taurus is associated with stability, patience, comfort, loyalty, and the physical world. If Aries begins the journey, Taurus asks, how do we make it last? Taurus energy values security. It enjoys beauty, pleasure, nature, food, music, touch, and material comfort. It wants life to feel steady and grounded. At its best, Taurus is dependable, sensual, calm, and persistent. It knows how to build slowly and protect what matters. But when unbalanced, Taurus can become stubborn, possessive, resistant to change, or overly attached to comfort. Taurus teaches the importance of grounding. It reminds us that growth needs roots. Gemini. Gemini is the sign of curiosity, communication, ideas, and movement. If Taurus wants stability, Gemini wants variety. It asks questions. It makes connections. It wants to learn, talk, read, write, observe, and exchange information. Gemini energy is quick, adaptable, witty, and mentally active. It thrives on conversation and discovery. At its best, Gemini is intelligent, flexible, lively, and open-minded. It can see many sides of a situation and bring people together through words and ideas. But when unbalanced, Gemini can become scattered, inconsistent, nervous, or superficial. It may collect information without going deeply into anything. Gemini teaches the power of the mind. It reminds us that life becomes richer when we stay curious. Cancer. Cancer is the sign of emotion, memory, home, care, and protection. Where Gemini moves outward into the world of ideas, Cancer moves inward into the world of feeling. It is connected to family, roots, belonging, and emotional safety. Cancer energy is sensitive and intuitive. It notices subtle moods and emotional shifts. It wants to protect what it loves. At its best, Cancer is nurturing, compassionate, loyal, and emotionally wise. It understands that strength is not always loud. Sometimes strength is the ability to care deeply. But when unbalanced, Cancer can become defensive, moody, fearful, or overly attached to the past. Cancer teaches emotional intelligence. It reminds us that the heart has its own memory. Leo. Leo is the sign of creativity, confidence, self-expression, and the heart. Leo wants to shine, not always in a shallow way, but in the sense of being fully alive. It is connected to performance, joy, generosity, pride, romance, and personal radiance. Leo energy is warm and expressive. It wants life to feel meaningful, colorful, and grand. At its best, Leo is generous, creative, loyal, playful, and inspiring. It encourages others to be brave enough to express who they are. But when unbalanced, Leo can become arrogant, attention-seeking, dramatic, or overly proud. Leo teaches the courage of self-expression. It reminds us that every person has a light that deserves to be seen. Virgo. Virgo is the sign of detail, service, improvement, health, and practical intelligence. After Leo's bold self-expression, Virgo asks, how can this be refined? How can this be made useful? How can this be improved? Virgo energy notices what others miss. It sees the small details, the errors, the patterns, the things that need attention. It is connected to work, skill, care, and service. At its best, Virgo is helpful, precise, thoughtful, humble, and deeply capable. It turns chaos into order. But when unbalanced, Virgo can become overly critical, anxious, perfectionistic, or unable to relax. Virgo teaches that love can be practical. Sometimes care is not a grand speech. Sometimes care is noticing what needs to be done and doing it well. Libra. Libra is the sign of balance, beauty, harmony, fairness, and relationships. Where Virgo refines, Libra relates. It is deeply aware of others. It wants peace, cooperation, elegance, and justice. Libra energy is diplomatic and social. It understands the importance of listening, compromise, and seeing both sides of a situation. At its best, Libra is charming, fair-minded, graceful, and thoughtful. It brings people together and creates harmony where there is conflict. But when unbalanced, Libra can become indecisive, people-pleasing, avoidant, or overly concerned with appearances. Libra teaches the art of relationship. It reminds us that life is not only about the self, it is also about how we meet others. Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of depth, intensity, passion, secrecy, and transformation. If Libra seeks harmony, Scorpio seeks truth beneath the surface. It does not want polite appearances. It wants what is real, hidden, powerful, and emotionally honest. Scorpio energy is magnetic and intense. It is connected to trust, intimacy, psychology, power, endings, and rebirth. At its best, Scorpio is loyal, intuitive, brave, and transformative. It can face darkness and emerge stronger. But when unbalanced, Scorpio can become controlling, suspicious, jealous, or emotionally extreme. Scorpio teaches that transformation requires honesty. It reminds us that some parts of life must be felt deeply before they can be healed. Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the sign of freedom, exploration, truth, wisdom, and expansion. After Scorpio's emotional depth, Sagittarius looks toward the horizon. It wants movement, meaning, adventure, and a bigger view of life. Sagittarius energy is philosophical, optimistic, and restless. It is connected to travel, learning, belief systems, teaching, and the search for truth. At its best, Sagittarius is enthusiastic, honest, adventurous, and inspiring. It helps us see beyond fear and limitation. But when unbalanced, Sagittarius can become careless, blunt, unreliable, or unwilling to deal with emotional complexity. Sagittarius teaches the importance of perspective. It reminds us that life is larger than our immediate problems. Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of discipline, ambition, structure, responsibility, and achievement. If Sagittarius dreams of distant horizons, Capricorn asks how to climb the mountain. It is practical, patient, and focused on long-term results. Capricorn energy understands time. It knows that meaningful success is rarely instant. It requires effort, maturity, sacrifice, and persistence. At its best, Capricorn is responsible, wise, determined, and capable. It builds things that last. But when unbalanced, Capricorn can become overly serious, controlling, emotionally reserved, or too focused on status and achievement. Capricorn teaches the power of commitment. It reminds us that dreams need discipline if they are going to become real. Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of originality, independence, humanity, rebellion, and the future. After Capricorn builds the system, Aquarius questions it. It asks, does this still serve us? Can we imagine something better? Aquarius energy is innovative, intellectual, idealistic, and unconventional. It is connected to social change, technology, friendship, groups, and collective progress. At its best, Aquarius is visionary, open-minded, inventive, and humanitarian. It sees possibilities others may miss, but when unbalanced, Aquarius can become emotionally detached, stubborn, rebellious for no reason, or too distant from personal feeling. Aquarius teaches the courage to think differently. It reminds us that progress often begins with someone who refuses to accept the old rules. Pisces. Pisces is the final sign of the Zodiac. It is associated with sensitivity, imagination, spirituality, compassion, dreams, and surrender. If Aries begins the cycle as the spark of individual life, Pisces ends the cycle by dissolving boundaries. It feels connected to something larger than the self. Pisces energy is intuitive, artistic, emotional, and deeply empathetic. It is drawn to music, poetry, healing, mysticism, and the unseen world. At its best, Pisces is compassionate, imaginative, gentle, and spiritually aware. It understands suffering and responds with kindness. But when unbalanced, Pisces can become escapist, confused, overly idealistic, or unable to face reality. Pisces teaches surrender and compassion. It reminds us that not everything can be controlled, explained, or measured. Some things must be felt. And with Pisces, the Zodiac comes full circle. From Aries, the first spark of identity, to Pisces, the ocean of imagination and unity, the 12 signs describe a complete journey through human experience. But the signs do not stand alone. They are grouped into deeper patterns. Elements, qualities, and energies. Once you understand the 12 zodiac signs, the next step is to see how they connect. The signs are not random. They are organized into groups that reveal their deeper nature. The most important of these groups are the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. Each element describes a basic way of experiencing life. Fire acts, earth builds, air thinks, water feels. Let's begin with fire. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Fire signs are energetic, passionate, expressive, and action-oriented. They are associated with inspiration, courage, confidence, and movement. Fire wants to live fully. It wants excitement, purpose, and possibility. Aries expresses fire as action and initiation. Leo expresses fire as creativity and self-expression. Sagittarius expresses fire as exploration and belief. Fire signs can be inspiring and bold, but they can also burn too hot. When unbalanced, fire becomes impatience, anger, pride, or recklessness. The earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Earth signs are practical, grounded, steady, and connected to the material world. They care about what is real, useful, stable, and lasting. Taurus expresses earth through comfort and security. Virgo expresses earth through service and refinement. Capricorn expresses earth through ambition and structure. Earth signs can be reliable and productive, but when unbalanced, earth becomes rigidity, fear of change, materialism, or excessive caution. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Air signs are intellectual, social, communicative, and idea-oriented. They live through the mind, through words, through concepts, through connection. Gemini expresses air as curiosity and communication. Libra expresses air as harmony and relationship. Aquarius expresses air as vision and innovation. Air signs can be brilliant, friendly, and open-minded. But when unbalanced, air becomes detachment, overthinking, inconsistency, or emotional distance. The water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Water signs are emotional, intuitive, sensitive, and deeply connected to inner life. They understand mood, memory, vulnerability, and unseen emotional currents. Cancer expresses water as care and protection. Scorpio expresses water as intensity and transformation. Pisces expresses water as compassion and imagination. Water signs can be healing, loyal, and empathetic. But when unbalanced, water becomes moodiness, fear, escapism, or emotional overwhelm. These four elements give us one way to understand the zodiac. But there is another important grouping, the qualities. The three qualities are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal signs begin things. Fixed signs sustain things. Mutable signs adapt and change. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. These signs are connected to initiation. They begin seasons and often carry the energy of starting something new. Aries begins through action. Cancer begins through emotional commitment. Libra begins through relationship and balance. Capricorn begins through goals and responsibility. Cardinal signs are active and motivated, but they may also struggle with impatience or wanting to control the direction of things. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. These signs are connected to stability and endurance. They hold energy. They maintain. They preserve. They resist being pushed around. Taurus holds material stability. Leo holds creative identity. Scorpio holds emotional depth. Aquarius holds ideals and vision. Fixed signs can be loyal and powerful, but they may also become stubborn or resistant to change. The mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. These signs are connected to transition and adaptation. They come near the end of seasons and carry the energy of flexibility, movement, and change. Gemini adapts through ideas. Virgo adapts through improvement. Sagittarius adapts through exploration. Pisces adapts through imagination and surrender. Mutable signs can be versatile and open, but they may also become scattered, inconsistent, or unclear. There is one more traditional grouping that beginners often encounter: masculine and feminine signs. In modern language, it may be better to think of these as active and receptive energies. Masculine or active signs tend to move outward. They express, act, initiate, and project energy into the world. The active signs are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Feminine, or receptive, signs tend to move inward. They reflect, absorb, respond, protect, and process energy more internally. The receptive signs are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. These terms are symbolic. They are not about biological sex or gender identity. Every person has both active and receptive energy within them. Together, the elements, qualities, and energies help us understand astrology at a deeper level. Instead of memorizing 12 separate signs, we begin to see patterns. Fire signs move with passion. Earth signs move with practicality. Air signs move with thought. Water signs move with feeling. Cardinal signs start. Fixed signs hold. Mutable signs change. This is when astrology starts becoming easier to understand as a system. But signs are only one part of it. To understand astrology more fully, we need to meet the planets. The planets, the forces of astrology. If the zodiac signs describe styles of energy, the planets describe the forces that use that energy. Think of the zodiac signs as costumes, moods, or environments. The planets are the characters. Each planet represents a different part of the human experience. The sun represents identity. The moon represents emotion. Mercury represents thought and communication. Venus represents love and attraction. Mars represents action and desire. In astrology, the planets are not just physical objects in space. They are symbols. Let's begin with the sun. The sun is the center of the solar system, and in astrology, it represents the center of the self. Your sun sign is the zodiac sign most people know. When someone says, "I am a Virgo," or "I am an Aquarius," they are usually talking about their sun sign. The sun represents identity, vitality, ego, purpose, and conscious self-expression. It shows what energizes us and how we shine. But the sun is not the whole personality. It is the central light, not the entire sky. The moon represents the inner world. It is connected to emotions, instincts, memories, habits, needs, and private feelings. If the sun is who you are becoming in the visible world, the moon is who you are when no one is watching. The moon describes what makes you feel safe, how you respond emotionally, and what kind of comfort you seek. This is why the moon sign is so important. Two people with the same sun sign can feel very different if their moon signs are different. Mercury represents the mind. It is connected to communication, learning, speech, writing, thought, humor, logic, and perception. Mercury shows how we process information and share ideas. Someone with a fiery Mercury may speak quickly and directly. Someone with an earthy Mercury may speak carefully and practically. Someone with an airy Mercury may love debate and conversation. Someone with a watery Mercury may communicate through emotion and intuition. Venus represents love, beauty, attraction, pleasure, and values. It shows what we find beautiful, how we express affection, what we enjoy, and what we are drawn toward. Venus is not only romance, it is also art, taste, harmony, comfort, and the things that make life feel sweet. Venus asks, "What do you love? What do you value? What brings you pleasure?" Mars represents action, desire, courage, anger, and drive. Mars is the part of us that pursues, fights, competes, initiates, and asserts itself. It shows how we go after what we want. When healthy, Mars gives confidence, motivation, and strength. When unbalanced, Mars can become aggression, impatience, or conflict. Mars asks, "What do you want and how do you chase it?" Jupiter represents growth, wisdom, luck, opportunity, faith, and expansion. It is connected to learning, travel, philosophy, abundance, and belief. Jupiter shows where we seek meaning and where life may invite us to grow beyond our current limits. When healthy, Jupiter brings optimism, generosity, and vision. When unbalanced, it can become excess, arrogance, or overconfidence. Jupiter asks, "Where do you expand? What do you believe in?" Saturn represents discipline, responsibility, structure, time, limits, and lessons. Saturn is often misunderstood because it can feel heavy. It is connected to challenges, delays, duties, and maturity. But Saturn is not simply negative. Saturn teaches us how to build something real. Without Saturn, dreams remain dreams. With Saturn, we learn patience, mastery, and commitment. Saturn asks, "What must you learn? Where must you grow up? What are you building over time?" Uranus represents change, rebellion, originality, freedom, and sudden awakening. It is the planet of disruption and innovation. Uranus breaks old patterns and pushes us toward the future. It is associated with individuality, invention, revolution, and the unexpected. When healthy, Uranus brings liberation and genius. When unbalanced, it can become chaos, instability, or rebellion without purpose. Uranus asks, "Where do you need freedom? What old rule are you ready to break?" Neptune represents dreams, spirituality, imagination, illusion, compassion, and mystery. It is connected to art, music, mysticism, fantasy, and the longing to merge with something greater than the self. Neptune dissolves boundaries. When healthy, Neptune brings inspiration, empathy, and spiritual depth. When unbalanced, it can bring confusion, escapism, deception, or unrealistic idealism. Neptune asks, what do you dream of? Where do you seek transcendence? Where might you be seeing illusion instead of truth? Pluto represents power, transformation, depth, endings, and rebirth. Pluto works beneath the surface. It is connected to psychology, shadow, control, obsession, healing, and profound change. It often points to experiences that force us to confront what we cannot ignore. When healthy, Pluto brings renewal, strength, and deep healing. When unbalanced, it can bring manipulation, fear, or destructive control. Pluto asks, what must be transformed? What must die so something new can be born? Together, the planets form the living forces of astrology. The signs describe how these forces express themselves. The sun may shine boldly in Leo, carefully in Virgo, intensely in Scorpio, or dreamily in Pisces. Mercury may communicate directly in Aries, beautifully in Libra, deeply in Scorpio, or unpredictably in Aquarius. This is why astrology becomes more layered than simple sun signs. A person is not just one sign. A person is a sky full of symbols. And two of the most important symbols beyond the sun are the moon sign and the rising sign. Beyond the sun sign, moon sign, and rising sign. Most people begin astrology with their sun sign, and that makes sense. The sun sign is important. It represents identity, vitality, and the central self. It is one of the strongest symbols in a birth chart. But astrology does not stop there. In fact, one of the biggest reasons people feel disconnected from their zodiac sign is that they are only looking at one piece of the chart. Someone might say, I'm a Sagittarius, but I don't feel adventurous. Or, I'm a Leo, but I'm not confident. Or, I'm a Gemini, but I'm actually very quiet. This does not necessarily mean astrology has nothing to say. It may mean there are other chart factors shaping the personality. The moon sign is one of them. Your moon sign represents your emotional nature. It speaks to your instincts, your needs, your private reactions, and your inner world. The sun is often what we show through identity and purpose. The moon is what we feel underneath. For example, a person may have a confident Leo sun but a sensitive Cancer moon. On the outside, they may appear expressive and warm, but emotionally, they may be protective, easily hurt, and deeply attached to family or home. Another person may have a practical Capricorn sun, but a dreamy Pisces moon. They may appear disciplined and responsible, yet inside they may be imaginative, emotional, and spiritually sensitive. This is why the moon sign matters. It gives astrology emotional depth. Then there is the rising sign, also called the ascendant. The rising sign is the zodiac sign that was rising over the eastern horizon at the moment of birth. Because the Earth rotates throughout the day, the rising sign changes much more quickly than the sun sign. This is why birth time is so important in astrology. The rising sign is often connected to first impressions, appearance, approach to life, and the way others initially perceive us. It is like the front door of the chart. If the sun is your central self and the moon is your inner emotional self, the rising sign is the way you meet the world. A person with Aries rising may come across as direct, energetic, and bold. A person with Libra rising may seem charming, balanced, and socially aware. A person with Scorpio rising may appear intense, private, or magnetic. A person with Pisces rising may seem gentle, dreamy, or sensitive. This is one reason two people with the same sun sign can feel completely different. They may have different moon signs. They may have different rising signs. Their planets may fall in different signs and houses. So when someone says, astrology says all people born in the same month are the same, that is not really what astrology teaches. Astrology looks at the full chart. The sun sign is important, but it is not alone. You are not one note. You are a whole composition. Houses and aspects. Now that we have explored signs, elements, planets, the moon sign, and the rising sign, we are standing at the edge of deeper astrology. This is the point where astrology begins to move from basic personality descriptions into the structure of a full birth chart. But we are not going to fully read a birth chart in this video. That deserves its own separate guide. For now, we only need to understand two important ideas: houses and aspects. These two concepts explain why astrology becomes so detailed. They show that a birth chart is not just about which signs you have, but where different energies appear in life, and how those energies interact with one another. First, the houses. In astrology, the birth chart is divided into 12 houses. Each house represents a different area of life. While signs describe styles of energy, houses describe where that energy shows up. The first house is connected to identity, appearance, and the way you enter life. The second house is connected to money, possessions, values, and self-worth. The third house is connected to communication, learning, siblings, and local environment. The fourth house is connected to home, family, roots, and emotional foundations. The fifth house is connected to creativity, romance, pleasure, and self-expression. The sixth house is connected to work, health, routine, and service. The seventh house is connected to relationships, partnership, and one-to-one connection. The eighth house is connected to intimacy, transformation, shared resources, and deep psychological themes. The ninth house is connected to travel, higher learning, philosophy, and belief. The 10th house is connected to career, reputation, ambition, and public life. The 11th house is connected to friendships, groups, hopes, and community. The 12th house is connected to solitude, spirituality, dreams, hidden matters, and the unconscious. A planet in a house shows where that planet's energy may become important. For example, Venus in the 7th house may place emphasis on relationships and partnership. Mars in the 10th house may bring drive and ambition into career. The moon in the 4th house may make home and family emotionally significant. But again, these are only simple examples. A real chart reading looks at the whole picture, not one placement by itself. So for now, remember this basic formula. Planets show the type of energy. Signs show how that energy expresses itself. Houses show where that energy appears in life. Then we have aspects. Aspects are the angles between planets in a chart. They show how different planetary energies interact with each other. Some aspects are considered harmonious. They suggest flow, support, and ease. Other aspects are considered challenging. They suggest tension, friction, growth, or conflict. For example, if the moon and Venus are in a harmonious aspect, emotional needs and affection may work together easily. If Mars and Saturn are in a difficult aspect, desire and discipline may create tension, like wanting to move forward but feeling blocked. Aspects are one reason astrology can become very detailed. A chart is not just a list of planets. It is a network of relationships. The planets speak to each other. Some cooperate. Some challenge each other. Some create pressure. Some create gifts. This is where astrology becomes less like a list and more like a living map. But for this beginner video, we are only opening the door. The detailed process of reading a birth chart step by step will come later. For now, it is enough to understand that houses and aspects add depth. They help explain where planetary energy shows up and how the different parts of a chart work together. Astrology as a symbolic language. So what is astrology really? It is not just a daily horoscope. It is not just saying, I am a Taurus or I am a Scorpio. It is not just personality labels or compatibility memes. Astrology is a symbolic language. It uses the sky as a mirror. The zodiac signs describe styles of energy. The elements show whether that energy acts like fire, earth, air, or water. The qualities show whether it begins, sustains, or adapts. The planets describe different parts of the human experience. The moon sign reveals emotional nature. The rising sign shows how we meet the world. The houses describe areas of life. The aspects show relationships between different energies. For beginners, this can seem like a lot, but astrology does not need to be learned all at once. You begin with your sun sign, then you learn your moon sign, then your rising sign, then the planets, then the houses, then the aspects. Slowly, the language becomes clearer. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this. Astrology is not meant to trap you inside a sign. It is not meant to say, you are this, and you can never be anything else. At its best, astrology gives us a way to reflect. It helps us ask better questions. Why do I react this way? What makes me feel safe? How do I communicate? What do I value? Where do I seek freedom? What lessons keep returning in my life? What parts of myself am I still learning to understand? Astrology does not remove responsibility. It does not make choices for us. It does not replace wisdom, effort, or self-awareness. But it can offer a map. And sometimes, even a symbolic map can help us see ourselves more clearly. The sky has always been above us. Long before cities, screens, and artificial lights, human beings looked upward and found stories there. They saw gods, animals, seasons, omens, cycles, and meaning. Astrology comes from that ancient human instinct to connect the outer universe with the inner one, to wonder if the stars above us might reflect something within us. And whether you approach astrology as a believer, a skeptic, a student, or simply a curious observer, the journey begins the same way. With the Zodiac, with the planets, with the symbols, and with the simple idea that perhaps the universe is not silent. Perhaps it speaks in patterns. And astrology is one way human beings have tried to listen.